And let's see where we were on this guy.
This part lab, right, with the disk manager. Let's go here on this guy here, computer management. Right here. So we talked about this and we did that little lab on the command line. And we did this whole thing using this part. We talked a little bit about format. Now we're going to talk about control panel and settings app. We're going to go over some of the items that they have. So, well, let me open the chat. I guess I had 2 messages there. If he allows me to open. The background, yeah, it's in the background. Okay. Okay, Greta, I'll get you next as soon as I get a chance. I'll put you as present. Okay, let's go back here. So we did last class. We went over this. So today, now we're going to start with the control panel, which you can access by one of the ways is through here. You can type control panel and it gives you access there. Remember, we have the widgets, right? Another widget is the applets. And we have the Metro app, which is the settings application, right? And we should have, for each of these, right, there should be an equivalent over here. Most people that been working with computers for a very long time, especially Windows, will most likely prefer to use the settings app, me included, because basically I've been using this since Windows 95. Actually, even further than that, because Windows 3.11 had a control panel as well. So this settings thing is something I introduced on Windows 8, which wasn't even fully implemented. They improved that a lot. It's much more integrated now. I know that one day they're probably gonna phase this out at one point, but let's see how long it takes. So let's go into the systems. I mean user accounts. That's the first thing we're gonna go over. So we have user accounts here. This gives you ability to add users to a computer. You can change the account types. The 2 main types, that is the administrators. That is also just a regular, let's look at here, properties. Group membership, you can make a standard user. You can make an administrator. There are some other levels here that you can give access to it. Like for example, remote desktop users, this here will only give access, will actually give access to a person to be able to remote to the machine. This is useful in the situation that if you have a workstation, right? Especially now with the pandemic and all, unless you have a workstation that sits in an office and you wanna let an employee that is working from home now to be able to log into their computer remotely and be able to work, be productive. So this would be how you go about it to give them access. There are different ways of doing it, but this is a very crude, easy way of doing it. Giving them permissions to log into the box. There is also a more secure and proper approach to be to actually have a remote gateway server. This will be a role that you install on a Windows Server machine. But for to make things easier, if it is a small business, this would be the type of things that you'll be allowing without giving them permissions to go in up and do whatever they want with the system, right? Keeping in the system locked down to that user. So this is something that can be done. Likewise, this guy also has its own account setting here. If you go other users, and you could potentially go here change user type, and you can change it to a standard user, and so on and so forth. I think setting limit screen time, switching users. There's probably some way of doing the same thing we did on the control panel as far as giving that user different type of group memberships via the Metro app, but it's beyond the scope of this class, and I'll have to dig into some documentation to find out. But for now, this is an easy way for you to go a little bit beyond just the standard administrator user types. Let's go now to the device manager. You can access the device manager by going into systems. This should be under here. What is it? Get a name. Systems. And you see the device manager right here. So this is that situation that, let's say you just upgraded your video card and you're having issues now, everything looks weird, and you're trying to roll back the video card. The approach here will be you go into display adapters, you go into the video card. This will probably say like Intel or NVIDIA or something like that, and you right click over here and you have go into properties, into drivers, and there's an option here to roll back a driver. This can apply to any kind of driver that you install. It could be your sound card, it could be a camera, whatever. If you updated the driver and you have any issues, this would be the go-to troubleshooting tool. Go into the device manager and roll back the driver. Next, to go into remote settings. This is to allow remote assistance, for example. Remote assistance, what it does is you give permissions to any user that's on the computer that requires somebody to assist them, right, on the other end with issues that they have on a computer. So this will give them permissions to request that type of assistance. There might be issues with that because that user could be requesting assistance for somebody out of your network, for example, depending on how secure you are, what kind of firewalls you have. And they could be potentially inviting, people that could do harm to your system. To help them with the machine, or even they could be an inside threat themselves, and they could be working with someone else. And so this is very delicate to have it open. If you do use it, make sure it's a closed network. That's all you're doing. But honestly, it's not a very good tool as far as how it works. It has I used it before and I've seen a lot of issues with it, kind of slow and stuff like that. It's much more easy to have a third-party alternative to that, like TeamViewer or LogMeIn or something like that, to do remote assistance to users in your network. Much better. This is more like kind of like your mom and dad, and you're trying to remote from your house and help them out, type of thing. This is the only time, a situation that I'll probably use that. Even then, I think downloading TeamViewer, the free version, would probably be more efficient. That is the remote desktop settings. You could allow or not allow the computer to receive remote desktop connections. So right now, if somebody tried to remote to this computer, even if I gave them permissions as a user, they will not be able to do that. Let's go into system protection now. So this is the system restoration thing that you can have. We discussed that about the previous class because we kind of had to do one, create a restore point, right? If you guys remember, you can name anything. Let me see, configure, yeah. So basically, this is where you enable or disable that. This used to be enabled by default, if I'm correct, on Windows 7. They removed this from being enabled by default but this is how you can enable it. So if you go into system restore, you should see where the last stuff was done. You can also choose different restore points and it gives you a list. This would be like if you have, just like I put it over here in description, Windows modules were installed, right? So I created a restore point there. In case those modules messed up on my machine, I could go roll back to the time before those modules were installed and get back to business. This is equivalent to, it's close to what a snapshot is on virtual machines, right? Although I think snapshots are a lot quicker to recover than system restore is. Let's go now to advanced system settings. So here you have several things you can do here. The first, let's talk about performance. Under these settings, you can control how much of the GUI stuff it looks pretty. Like for example, you see you have the thumbnails here, right? When I'm dragging through these icons, I could disable that, right? By making this unchecked. So these I can actually just for better performance, like some of these things, if are features that you don't really care about, and you start removing the ones you don't care about from being active, your system will run a little faster. I promise you that. Or you can just turn off everything just for better performance, and you definitely have a faster operating system. The problem with this though is that some of the things may become hard to operate in a manner of, like for example, that is a feature here that they have, and I noticed this on a day-to-day while trying to do, I think, what is it, smooth edges on screen fonts. It becomes hard to read, honestly, if you remove those features, so you guys know. So you might want to really look and see before you just go best performance, right? Now, if it is just a server sitting there that you really don't care, you don't log in often, then yeah, sure. They have some other stuff here like virtual memory. This is equivalent to the swap feature that we have on Linux boxes. This would be like if your memory is running, you need to store more stuff in memory that you actually physically have. You start feeding off of your hard drive. So if you go here, you can actually configure this stuff manually. You set custom size, and then you look at your hard drive. This is the space available you have. You could increase to a higher thing that Windows will give you. You always want to go double the size that you have in RAM. If you have 8 gigs of RAM, I would say go to 16 gigs of hard drive space, if you can afford, of course. You have some data execution stuff. So this is, you basically take away permissions from some applications and programs from doing stuff automatically on your computer. This is protection feature. Let's close this off. Done with that. So let's go now to devices and printers. Let's go back here on the control panel. What is it? There you go. Devices and printers. This guy. So here, this gives you access to your USB devices, Bluetooth devices. So it's not just for, a lot of the times people go here just for printers, but like, for example, I was having issues with my Bluetooth device. I don't know if you guys remember, I was using my phone for a little bit. So the troubleshooting step, interesting enough, started with me going, actually, yeah, with me going here, I'll go into properties, and there was some features that I can actually show you guys. Let me go here on my main device, and yeah, this one's fine, I guess. It's the Metro app. Here you go. So here. devices and printers. So troubleshooting step for that was actually going here, clicking into properties, and there were some services here, right, that I needed to make sure that they're all enabled before beginning the steps, because the issues that I was having, it could have been because of this. So this was one of the things I had to go through. So it actually has an expanded use that a lot of people don't really think about it too much. Let's close this off, go back to this guy. Also, troubleshooting printers, of course, you go in here, you can remove a device that you're not using. Maybe you have a printer that you replace with something else. So this will be what you use that for. You could say your default printer here as well. You can go into printing preferences, and it has different features here that you can adjust how things are going to be printing by default. What else? Display drivers right here, like the monitors. You could do mess with the settings here. Although this stuff can be accomplished by just right-clicking here and going to display settings, right? It serves the same purpose. And there's some multimedia devices also will show up in there as well on this thing. Like if you plug in a smartphone to your computer, it's going to show up in there as well. So now let's go into the networking sharing center. Should be here. This guy. So here you can find several things that you can do here. If you go into adapter settings, you can select and disable if you have more than one network device in your machine. Like for example, you have a wireless device and a physical port, or more than one physical port. You can disable them, enable them as well. You can see their status, right? Status will give you the speed that your connection is going. If your connectivity is working, in this case, you can see that my IPv4 connection is fine, right? But you can see that my IPv6 is not working because my network is not running on IPv6. You can see more details here. The same details that will show if you're going in. If you guys already watched the networking class, actually, no, we're going to be showing this class later on, but that is some tools that I think I put on that class. But we're going to go more in detail when you go into Windows, because if you go in ipconfig, which is a utility that Windows has, you'll see that you can see a lot of information from my network interface card compare it to this here, right? It's a lot of the same information. A little bit more detailed here, but you can see a lot of the same information here. Let's see what else I have. So status. If you go into properties, you can enable different types of protocols. Like for example, my IPv6 is not being used. I can totally disable that. Right? It's not being used. There are other things that can be done here. Some of them which are definitely beyond the scope of this class, but you can definitely do some more stuff here that will have to do with routing, for example. Like if this was a DNS server, you could add some port forwarding here in this configure area here of the interface. But we're not gonna obviously talk much about that here. But one thing that you guys need to know is that if you go into properties here, right, of the device, and you go a little further, here you can actually change or set a static IP. This is how you set a static IP on a machine, right? So if you go in IP address, you could put, you know, like 10, what is it? Go back here. 10.11.11.7. This would be like the host IP. Let's see, you're running on a subnet on a subnet mask of /24, right? Notation, CIDR notation /24. This would be equivalent to 24 bits being used for networking. So if 24 bits are used for networking, and each of these octets are 8 bits, and this was on the networking presentation I had, if you guys already watched it. This will be a 255.255.255 because I'm using all this part. So if you look here, everything that has a 255, there is not going to be any variation on the number. I'm locking in that whole octet for networking. So that means that 10.11.11 is a network address, right? Default gateway, this would be the router this device to connect to. So if I'm a workstation and I want to connect to the intranet, at some point I need to hit a router, right? That's going to take me to either another router or it's going to take me to the internet. But regardless, I need to connect to that specific router, right? So this would be where the router is going to go, right? So if you look at my, let's go back to CMD here and do an IP config. You will see that my default gateway is 10.0.2.2. This is my route, right? This is the router that I'm connecting to. Now, since this is VirtualBox, you can grab some network information here because everything is virtualized. Go to the network manager. Oh, this doesn't apply to this. Sorry, guys. Oh, this applies to, I totally forgot. I have a firewall here that's doing all that. So this will apply for, so the traffic is actually going through this here, my WAN network. So if I were to connect to this guy's IP would be, let me see if I can connect to it. 10.10, no, that's 0.0.1. Oh, wait a minute, I have a Chrome browser here. There you go. It makes it easier. I hate using the old school Edge. So 10.10, no, 10.0.1. Oops, that's my Xfinity router, guys. So I cannot go there. But definitely is, yeah, it is my Xfinity route, so I can't go there. But this will connect me to the router, as you can see. DNS server, this would be the DNS that I'm using for this guy. And I think the issue that I couldn't access that was because my settings were changed. Yes, I'm no longer on my internal network. Let me go back to that. Properties, changes to obtain the IP. Okay. All right. So if we go back to this, you notice that, oh, there you go. Now I'm on a different network, right? This I was using in a form that I was not connected to the network that I'm hosting, right? That has this guy, this domain controller, and this firewall, right? It's an internal network that I set up in VirtualBox. So if you go now, we'll go to 10.168.1.1, I will be connecting to 192.168.1.1. Oops. That's not it. Oh, I'm connecting straight to the, this is the VirtualBox DHCP server. So I'm not grabbing from my firewall, my DHCP for some reason. I'm grabbing from this guy, the one that I just showed you guys. Well, anyways, there'll be some troubleshooting for that, and we'll talk about this. This is, like I said, beyond the scope of the class, but oops, that's not it. So for some reason, I'm grabbing from here. This DHCP server here. It looks like it. Is it? No, it's not. Strange. I'm just gonna give one more attempt on that firewall. Is it? You know what? Let's keep this. I have it saved on my Kali Linux. Whenever that pops back up, be easier. I never meant for my Windows to access that. Here you go. This is the guy. There you go. I wasn't putting the HTTPS. That's why I couldn't access it. So basically what happened is on that Windows box, what is it? That's not it. So that Windows box here, instead of going to where I wanted to go, it Googled the 192.168.1 address. That's what it did. Now, if I had done this, that would have taken me to the firewall. That would have taken me to the firewall. Okay, so now that we sort that out, let's go back here where we were. So here the properties, so that's basically the default gateway, is your connection to the next router that's going to take you out. So in this case here, my firewall is acting as the DHCP server and router to the internet, right? So DNS is if you want to basically it's name your resolution, right? So if you have an IP, like for example, if you go, let's see, like google.com, right? www.google.com, right? So this is a website, right? Every URL that you can think of has an IP. So if you go to CMD here and you do NS lookup, which is another tool, this is to find what a URL is in IP terms, right? So if you go www.google.com, it will provide me with Google. This site is located in this address. That's a public address, right? So yeah, as you can see, Google also uses IPv6. They are one of the companies that does that. I believe Amazon uses as well, and I believe that Facebook also uses IPv6, if I'm correct. There are more and more companies coming about, but still IPv4 is the standard. So this will be like, if we didn't have name resolution, like DNS, we would have, every time we went to google.com, we have to remember this address here, this number here, to be able to connect to the site. So this is why it's needed. It's easier for humans to commit to memory a name than it is a bunch of numbers. So you could set the server manually, or you could have your DHCP server set it for you. So this is why you have these settings here. There are some more advanced settings here. This is when it comes to port forwarding, things that you can have, other default gateways that you can have, some other, like I said, DNS features. You can mess with some WINS features. but this is all way beyond the scope of this class. But this is so you guys are aware that you can do some other stuff with this settings of the network card. Okay, so let's go over settings, network, internet. I think this one is probably going to be better on my machine. And let's go over this guy here. So here we have the Wi-Fi stuff, right? You can enable the Wi-Fi. You can show the available networks, as you can see here. You could connect to different networks, right? You could go airplane mode. Airplane mode basically kills the Wi-Fi, but it does even more than that. What airplane mode does, it kills all the transceivers on your device. So if you have a Bluetooth device, if you have NFC, which is for like Google Pay, Apple Pay, you will shut off all those transmissions. That's what airplane mode does. You can also set yourself as a mobile hotspot. It works kind of like, let me see if it gives me options here or not. Let me turn this off. Anyways, so if you set yourself as a mobile hotspot, it's just like a phone, right? If you have an Android or Apple device, you should have some tethering option or something like that. Basically makes this its own router, right? But even though I'm not connected to a cellular network, I'm connected to a wireless in my house, you will give me the same capability of sharing connection through this device. So if essentially my computer becomes a router, that's basically what you do. So you got to be very mindful of setting passwords to those settings and stuff like that. You don't want to let anybody just hop in your mobile hotspot because they will be able to, anybody will be able to connect to you and they could essentially compromise data that you might be transferring, using that for. That is dial up under connected to the internet. So let's get out of here. Let's go back to this guy. Networking sharing center. Here. So connect to a network. No, that's not it. Yeah, that's the one. So you set up a new connection. You can set up different types of connection here, right? You could connect to the internet to set up a dial-up connection. Sometimes if you have DSL, you may have to create a broadband authentication. This is where you go about it. If you want to set up a virtual private network or dial-up connection, you could go this route here. If maybe your dial-up is not to the internet, but your dial-up is to a building, to a business, you're trying to connect to some telephone modem somewhere else, this would be where you go about it. Also, the virtual private network could be typically a secure link that you establish between one place with another place, right? Typical implementation of this would be you're working from home and you need to connect to your employer's office. You set up a virtual private network with that, and that means that everything that your virtual private your employer then will provide you with like a DHCP type service in which you have an IP internally, you have name resolution internally, everything. So you can still browse the internet given whatever access you had if you're in the building. Like if you are connected to a virtual private network and they happen to have a lockdown type policy that the employees cannot go anywhere on the web, you're not going to be able to, obviously, because everything is being proxied. But you'll be able to access the resources as if you're in the office, right? While being secure, because a VPN will encrypt the traffic. It creates a tunnel and everything that goes through it is encrypted. So that is the secure way of doing remote work. Let's go. We went over that. That's okay. We check status. We did this. Network connections. Connections. So we went over this already. You can enable, disable the router. Let me see what else. You can disable through here. Remember when we went over change adapter settings, you could disable the router here. You could also disable under the status screen as well. Another thing that you can do is bridge connections. I remember we talked about bridge before. Basically, if you bridge two network interfaces, they're essentially the same connection. So if you go here on VirtualBox under network, if I change this to bridge adapter, that means that I'm feeding off the actual physical adapter on this box. That's what bridging means. Let's go next here, PV4, PV6 priority. Settings, we did that. Oh, missed one. So if you go here, you go under properties, under configure. Actually, let's go to the TCP stuff. Properties here, configure. Configure. Sure, whatever. So if you go under advanced settings, you should have a place for here. So this, you can actually change the speed of which you transmit, and you can have your transmission be auto-negotiated, as is typically the setting, or you can have full duplex. Full duplex, that means that you can receive and transmit at the same time. Half duplex, that means that you only transmit when you're not receiving, and you only receive packets when you're not transmitting. So this slows down the network a lot. You can have different applications. These are all the rates that I could go based on what my network interface card allows. You can also change the speed on your wireless network as well. So if you go, let's go networking center. Yes, this maybe. Change adapter settings. Yes. It's the same application here. Let's go here. No, this is not it. What is my Wi-Fi? Is this guy? Oh, I'm not on the wireless. Ooh. Okay, so if you go properties, I cannot access because of group policy. Obviously, this is our computer. So I'm not going to be able to demo to you guys here, but it should be the same thing that you go through. It will basically go under properties, go under configure, and there should be on the advanced, there should be a place here for you to do the same thing in wireless terms and change how your speed is rated. You can also set quality of service. Quality of service determines the priority on the packets that you're sending. It could be, for example, if you want to put higher priority to your voice over IP phones versus priority on regular data, right? You can also configure your wake on LAN. Wake on LAN is if your computer is asleep or standby or whatever, an administrator could send a packet to your computer and your computer will come back to life. This is useful if you do some imaging automation and you use like Pixie Boot, for example. You could use Wake on LAN on that for that type of application. Also for deploying things, like if you're trying to deploy a new update to your machines, this will be another application of it. Let's see what else here. Internet options. Okay, that's another thing here. Let's see what else they have here. Events, power management. Internet options. So this looks like the settings for Internet Explorer, if you guys are familiar with. This also governs a lot of how your computer interacts with the web browsing itself. Like for example, Chrome uses this as its own. So the settings that you set here will also apply to the Chrome browser. Firefox does not do that. Firefox has its own. So this can also be used on, these settings can be set via regedit as well. You can master these settings as well. But essentially general, it's just some browsing Internet Explorer and some browsing settings here. You have some cookies options, what your home page, page tabs is going to go to. Like if you click on the home button, what you're going to go to. You have the security settings. That means like trusted sites. You know, you have less of controls there, while restricted sites, you know, people that are placed there cannot be sites cannot be accessed if they're there. Local intranet permissions, and you can always custom the type of access that you're giving, right? You can totally change why you allow or disallow per environment, per zone. Privacy settings, this is like pop-up blockers, location if you have that enabled, in private browsing, and stuff like that. You can set settings for individual sites as well, like to either block or allow. Content. This will give you some content-based parental control features also are here. Security certificates, if you need to manually add a certificate, will be here. Connections, this will be the place that you set up a proxy, for example, right? If you want all your users to go traffic to go through a proxy, this will be where you go. This can also be set via regedit, like I said, and this could be combined with like a local policy, or could be used on a group policy if you have a domain controller in place. They have programs, which are options associated with programs. So depending on the application, like what does the application do, depending on what it's supposed to do, right? You have advanced options, which is a much more granular approach to settings. You can secure your computer more granularly here. You can work with your multimedia, giving permissions to some multimedia stuff to be done through here as well. Like for example, use software rendering instead of GPU rendering. This will be a multimedia feature that you'll be using, right? Either enabling or disabling. So this is what the internet options is for. Now let's go talk about the next item on the list, which is the firewall. Windows has a, let's go back here. So if you go into system security, you have the Windows Defender firewall. This is an application firewall, not to be confused with a hardware or in my case here, a virtualized firewall, which I have here. This is a virtualized firewall, which are much more controlling. This is on the host itself. It doesn't affect a network. This is just purely the host. You have several things that you can do here. For example, you want to allow an app feature. You can give some permissions to those features depending on the location type that you have selected. So you have these locations here, like you have the domain, you have a private network, you have public. Public will be like if you are at a restaurant and they have Wi-Fi. So this is where you want to be there. This is the one that blocks the most stuff. As you can see, it even tells you Public places such as airports. So this is the most restrictive of them. Then you have the private, which would be like work or home. And then if you happen to have a domain, these two are kind of could be interchangeable in a way. But this would be like for if you have a domain controller operating everything. This would be if you have a work group, for example, you'll be using private. You can change notification settings as well on the firewall. You can change, if you go in advanced, this gives you a much more firewall feel to it because here you can actually set a rule. Like I have this application here and I can go inside the rule and I can enable that rule. I can disable the rule. I can allow this program, right? This is an allow a rule. So allow this connection. I can block this connection. I can allow this connection if it is secure. So I can give the permissions here that I need to give. So this is what an application firewall looks like. You can set up some monitoring as well to listen to that type of traffic, right? And all kinds of rules that you can imagine. So this is the actual more controlling firewall. This is not the basic interface. This here is more of a basic overview of what you can do. This will give you more granular control if you go into the advanced settings. Next, let's go to display settings. We can either go through here, right? On the display settings, or we can just right click. Oops, I minimized the windows. There you go. So if you minimize here, and you can actually go to display settings here, right? This is typically where people go. So Windows 10 actually has something called Nightlight. This will have different settings here. When you turn this on at sunset, so basically your screen will cut off all the blue lights that it emits. Blue light is something that is known to be bad for your eyes when you're exposed for long periods of times. Also, it makes it easier to read at night. It also doesn't affect your sleep. Sometimes if you're staring at a computer that doesn't have the setting on, you may have trouble sleeping at night because of the blue light emission that you're getting. You can also set this on the hours that you want, when to turn on, when to turn it off. But this is a new feature. They didn't have this a few versions back. You can also control the scaling of things. So I have this resolution here, but I am 150% scaling. That means I made things bigger to make it easier to read. If I set on 100% scaling, you're gonna notice that things get slightly smaller. This is the actual 1920 by 974 resolution, right? Or something close to it at least. This is a tag to be adapted to my monitor. So this is basically my monitor resolution. Right? So if I set up for 150, you'll notice that the scaling is bigger, but it's not a zoom per se. I'm still keeping those pixels, right? So this is what it is. It's how many pixels you basically have on the screen, right? So the more pixels you have, the sharper the image is. However, everything gets smaller. That's why you want to do some resizing on the text, on the apps, and stuff like that. So this is that. Let's see what else. Let's go into power and sleep. We can actually access that here. So this is your screensaver, your power saving features, right? Or your sleep features. So this, if you see here, I have it set up so that when I'm on battery power, my monitor is gonna turn off in 5 minutes. If I'm plugged into the wall, my monitor will take 10 minutes. So monitors on a laptop, for example, or a mobile device will use more battery than the device just being on. Like your phone, for example. If you have a phone, you could have the same amount of apps on if the screen is on or off. But like if you have it on and you effectively looking at the stuff, or you just have it on itself, like the screen, you will notice that your battery is going to drain a lot faster. The same thing if you have more brightness on your screen. That means that you're using more battery to make the screen brighter, right? So you're using more battery in that occasion. If you use your power setting phone settings on your phone, you notice that if you want to save a lot of battery, your screen gets dim. So same thing goes for here. If your monitor is on, obviously you're spending more battery. That is more power settings that you can have in place. There are some balanced rules that balance energy consumption with hardware. You can also create a plan that could be more customizable if you're going through, for example, change advanced power settings. You can set up different things, like for example, Internet Explorer, Java frequency. So on battery, you want to use max power savings here, or if it is plugged in, you want to use performance. So this affects how even how applications can be ran. Like for example, you could have a gaming like a computer game that you have max for performance on that game if it is plugged to the wall. If you are on battery, you can put power savings. This would affect the graphics, obviously, because there's going to be less rendering of the graphics, for example, if you're using that application on a power savings type of setting, right? And there's definitely there are many different types of things that you can do. Like for example, a typical setting that I have it on my hard drive. If it is on plug into the wall, sometimes you can actually have it. What is it? I think the max is never turn it off or something. No, I don't think they have a. Uh, Interesting. Let's restore here. Okay. That is a setting to never turn off your hard drive. I think you can put never. Yes, or not. Yeah, never. So this means that if I'm plugged into the wall, my hard drive is always on, right? If I'm on battery, in 10 minutes, it will turn off, right? So it really depends on what you need that device for. Like a server, yeah, you might want to keep an ever, right? Because this also translates to your desktop counterparts. So this is what that is. Next on the list is Windows security, updates and security. They have this here. No. Updates and security. Let's go back to this guy. It should be under here. Security and maintenance, actually. Oh, this is where you control your UAC stuff, virus protection. Windows has Windows Defender is installed from the get-go. That's an antivirus. So every Windows box comes with it. Is this guy here is now Windows Security, I guess they call it, but it used to be Defender. And it has several protections that you can have in place here. It is real-time antivirus, so it's always watching your box. It is not the best antivirus that you can have, but it's also not the worst, but it's there. They came out with this around the time of Windows XP, I think, but you actually had to install it. But ever since Windows 8, it started coming with the box itself. Let's go back here. Let's go back on the settings app, and they have a they changed the menu. Oh, right here, update and security. So here you can look at your Windows update settings. You can pause your updates if you feel that you need to pause them. You can change the active hours. This would be to automatically do the updates, right? You can change the active hours. So active hours stands for the hours that you actually use in your PC. So by setting this, and that is an 18-hour minimum. So they expect that those hours, besides the on a 24-hour day, right? Those minus those 18 hours that this computer is active, they expect to be able to update your box on their own. So automatically updates, right? You can have this on or off. I have it off. Typically on a server environment, it's going to be off. You can look at your update history. So everything that got installed, everything that got updated, you can check here. Other updates would be like a driver will be here, a driver update, or some other application that had a update made by Windows that might also be here. Oops, let's go back here. Advanced options, receive updates from Microsoft, download the updates over MetaConnect. So this is all things that you can do. You can also have restart service as soon as possible. This will automate the restart of your computers when they're updates. By having this disabled, I will download, I will install the updates, but my computer is not gonna reboot on their own. I'll have to physically do or authorize the reboot when it tells me to. You can show notifications. So this show notification on the PC requires a reboot after finishing an update. So this will go hand in hand with this. With this being disabled, this should be enabled. You can pause your updates for a window. It has a window there. Delivery options, this would be if you're grabbing stuff from the internet, so you allow downloads from other PCs. This gives me a peer-to-peer type of update mode. That means that every Windows computer out there could be sending me packets of that update that I'm downloading, right? I could disable that and make it so only PCs on my local network. And by enabling this one, also PCs on the internet. There's some more advanced settings here, bandwidth related, upload related. So I'll definitely be on the scope of this class, but that's what that's for. Let's look now at the command line. So there are two command lines. You have the CMD, or command prompt, which this is emulation of DOS. This is not DOS. Windows hasn't used DOS since Windows XP. I think that was the last time that DOS was around, was the Windows before then. So ever since then, this has just became a command line tool to do administrative tasks on the text mode. You can do all the Windows things that you see here, even open an application via the command prompt. There are two modes on the command prompt. Let's see here. So you have the standard mode. Typically, that's how you open the application. Like if I wasn't an administrator, I'll be opening that as a standard user. Since I'm an administrator, it's always gonna be opening as an administrator mode. By administrator, I mean I'm the actual network administrator. So that's why it's opening like that. But typically, if you wanna do anything that requires permissions, for example, which would be, if we go on control panel here, let's see, let's just go one of these items here. Like this item. You see the shield here? This is the user control settings, or UAC. So user access control, all the items of user access control are with this shield here. User access control, that's what it is. So to change those settings, I need to go here. So this will soften the tools that use this. This will increase. The higher it is, the more you're gonna be asked to put in credentials, for example, right? So if you go here on this box here, remember I was doing the, what was it? Change adaptive settings. If I click here, because this is managed by a network administrator, if I click on properties, it's gonna ask me for a login and password. That's an administrator's login and password that is asking, right? So let's go back to this box here, what we were. So that's what that's for. Let's go back here. Where we were. So on the command line, as we were on CMD, when you run as an administrator, you will be able to execute all these tasks that otherwise standard user will be restricted to do. Only administrators can. So this will only probably, if it is like a standard, like this, my actual host machine, will be asking for a password first time I get in, but after that, it's not gonna ask for a password again. So you have the command help. Help will give you some help in several commands that you can use in this box. You can also ask for help for a specific command. So let's see, help, let's see, robocopy. So it gives me information pertaining this command line tool, like what it does, what the different parameters do when I put them in, right? CLS is to clear the screen. Exit, you know, if I tap exit here, we'll get off the command prompt. I don't want to do that right now because I'm showing you that stuff. There are some location stuff. So as you can see here, I am inside the C directory under the users folder that is inside the administrator profile folder. So if I were to do that here on this Explorer, I'll be here in the C directory on the users folder inside the administrator profiles folder. So this is where I am. So if I do while Windows calls dir, which is the dir, which is basically list directory, right? In Linux, this would be an ls. I don't think it works here. No, it doesn't. So in Linux would be a list directory. So you see everything that you see here, right? In there. So if you were to change to the previous directory, right? Let's say I want to go into users. I will put CD or change directory, 2 dots. 2 dots will move me back one. Now, if I put CD administrator, it's gonna put me back where I was, right? Now, another thing on this locator, so you have the 2 dots, that means previous directory. Now, if you go dir dot, this will also list the current directory that you are, right? Because just 1 dot means current directory. SFC, this is to check our, oops, SFC, this is to check hard disk for corrupt files and repair them as you go. There is another tool that does that, which is the check, what is it, check disk. That's another tool that does that. This is actually doing it right now. Let me kill it. So Control plus C kills whatever is doing. So this will also do the same things that SFC does, but this will go a little deeper and actually look for errors on their hard drive sector, for example. So it goes, the check disk, which is this tool here, actually goes deeper. However, the check disk works better if you do it on boot time. So that's when you typically want to use the check disk, is when the system is actually booting. So it doesn't at the very beginning. When you do it right now, yeah, you can find some stuff, but you typically don't find everything you're looking for. If it is just files and trying to repat it, then the SFC is a better tool for that. Another thing that wouldn't be able if I didn't have a domain is something called GP update. These updates, like if I do a change to the group policy, remember talking about, let me open it up here. Group policy management. So if I do a change to the group policy, right? So you have this domain here, Seth. It has its group policy objects here, right? So these are several settings that I could have that does different things, right? So let's see, I don't have any starter policy here, but if I were to create a group policy, let's make a group policy here for the domain. Create a group policy. New group policy. So if I go in here and I edit this group policy, you're gonna see that I have several options. This one affects computers, the machine itself, whether it's software updates, whether it's Windows settings, or some administrative template that I may have to allow different things. Others affect the user. So when it affects the user, that means that if that user logs, it doesn't matter what machine he logs, those policies will apply to him. If he only affects the machine, doesn't matter who logs into the machine, the group policy will affect them, but they can go to a different machine and be subject to a different type of policy, right? So this is what that is. So when you do GP update, that means that you are querying your group policy manager, right, your domain controller, and you're checking for updates on the group policy that you have. So this is why, like, if you just made a change here, sometimes you want to do a group policy update to update your changes, because sometimes it takes about, it could take 5-10 minutes. It depends. Sometimes it takes a reboot before you updates. It really depends on how group policy is implemented in your network. You can also look at GP results. And this will give you actually -R, I think is what yeah. So you do a -R. There you go. This is going to pull all the group policies that are applying to this computer and user and the domain policy itself. So let's say you just created a group policy and you did a GP update, and for some reason you don't see a change that you made. That is a likelihood that you're having some problems, some issues. Maybe you need to reboot the machine. Maybe you did something wrong with the group policy. Maybe you're having a connectivity problem between your workstation and domain. Could be several different things. So when you do a GP result /R, that's the reason why you're looking for that. You want to make sure that the group policy that you made is applying to whether either the user or computer that you are trying to apply the policy to. So this would be the kind of basically is a group policy troubleshooting tool. Task list. These are all the tasks that you have assigned to your task manager. Oh, let's go back here. Actually, never mind. These are all the processes that are running on your computer. So tasks list will be equivalent to this here, your processes. You have the GUI version, you have the CLI version of it. The difference between the two is that this one you see in real time, the other one you see what's happening at the precise moment. Oops. Go back down, go back up, one, you go. At the precise moment. You can also use it to stop processes. So if you go help, task list, you see there are many different options here. and also what they look like. You can filter some of those processes if you're looking for something specific. You can do several different things with it. Display services hosted by that process. You can also stop and start tests. I don't think you can start. I think you can only stop. Yeah, you can only stop. That all the tools that you can use to start tasks on the command line. That is the shutdown option. Let's do a help here on the shutdown. This one is pretty useful, especially if you want to run this remotely. You can run some of these commands remotely via the command line itself. And you can add several different queues here. For example, I believe you can add a timer. So shutdown /T and the time, you can specify how long you want to allow the computer to run before it shuts down. So you say, hey, listen, I'm going to be rebooting the machine in 30 minutes. You can set up a timer, right? You can also send a notification. So when people get notified of the shutdown, they hear the comment. So your computer is going to shut down in blah, blah, blah minutes. This is why, right? So /R will be a full computer restart, right? So this would be, you're going to put shutdown /R. That means your computer is going to reboot, not just shut down itself. If it's just shut down on its own, your computer is basically going to do this, shut down. So there's several different options here you guys can play with. This will be on a server environment. You can actually put random reasons to it, prefabricated reasons, basically. Boot rec, it repairs the Windows installation files. So help boot rec. Oops. Got to do the question mark on this one. That's another way to get help. Did I type it right? Yes. Okay, we cannot use this one because this is not an installation. We're not using the Windows pre-installation environment. That's why we can't. Or Windows PE. We have to use one of those repair things in Windows that comes before Windows is actually booted to be able to use some of these tools. So this is one of them. We went over dir, which is view contents of a directory. MD will be to create a directory. So if you want to make a directory, it'll be MD test. So if you go dir here now, you're going to see that is a folder called test. CD is to change directory. RD will be to remove directory. So if you do RD test and we do a dir again, you're going to see that the test directory is gone. DEL will be to delete files. Copy will be to copy files. Copy will be to copy files. Xcopy, you can copy files, directories, and subdirectories. And that is an even better command to use, which is robocopy. Robocopy will do the same things as Xcopy, but it's a little bit more robust. This is typically the ones you want to have it on a script, for example. It's more effective than Xcopy, but you can use it either. Extract, we extract cabinet files or .cab extension. You have expand, which will expand compress update files. And this is pretty much it for Windows for the command prompt. We also have something called PowerShell. That is something that Windows is rapidly replacing the command prompt with. It's in theory easier to use, but it's still like a lot of people still use a command prompt for several different things, but it's rapidly people are rapidly migrating to it just because you can integrate and do so much with it with PowerShell. So let me get out of here. Troubleshooting Windows startup problems. Let's go over some of them. So some of the problems that you may have is if you have a BIOS-based system, the BIOS starts and searches for the hard disk or the master boot record. If you have the UEFI base system and you lose boot manager reads the boot configuration data file, and if that is more than the operating system that you can boot to, you will be presented with different options. WinLoad, that exe loads the hard drive abstraction layer and registry, and the boot drivers into memory. The NTSK kernel exe takes over the loads and with all the necessary operating system processes. And after everything is and all the processes are loaded, you get the long on screen. So this is basically how the system boots. There are several things that could happen when you're doing that process. One of them could be that your computer tells you that it's missing an operating system. So it's an issue with startup, right? You use the Windows RE, Windows Recovery. If you have it installed, typically you can make a disk out of it when you're installing Windows for the first time. You can boot it to diagnose the problem. That's one of the steps. Another thing, you can use the MS config. We talked about this guy here before, MS config, this guy here, to boot into safe mode or some diagnostic type of startup. You can boot a recovery image using the system recovery or Windows backup tool. Windows also have a backup tool. Which you can configure. You can maybe have a third-party tool. You could also do that as well. Another thing you can do is you need to make sure that on the BIOS, right, when you first booting Windows, let me see if I can demo a BIOS here real quick. Let me go back to VirtualBox. This guy here. Let's open any of these guys. Let me see. I have another this machine here. Let me see if I can force BIOS. There's a way to do it. Let me see if I remember how. Advanced encryption. Nope. Okay, well, what we can do is, I know my VMware does. VMware does have that option. It's a lot easier. So I can go here. Power off this guy first. Oops. Let's just make it a Windows computer. Start later. Windows. Sure. 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 Go here, and I have a setting here under options. It's There you go. Enable secure boot. So these are BIOS settings that I can set up here initially. But if I boot this guy up, I'm gonna be presented with the BIOS, most likely. If I'm working. Nope. No, I think it's booting still. Huh. Let's keep it running. I think it's gonna boot into BIOS eventually. Anyways, so essentially in the BIOS, that is a place that you can check if your order of boot is correct. So let's see, for some reason, settings got messed up there and your hard drive is not the one being booted first. Maybe it's a second hard drive that you have, or it is a CD drive that you have. So you wanna make sure that your booting order is correct. You can also boot into the Windows pre-installation environments and go from there as far as troubleshooting as the issues with starting problems. Another issue that you may have is missing graphic cards. In that occasion, you could go into safe mode. Safe mode, what it would do is greatly reduce your display adapter settings. So Windows is not going to be all colorful and pretty. It's going to be very few colors or even black and white. And it's going to look very like poor quality of, displays. Things are going to look ugly. But with that, it'll give you the ability to, see something. If you're having issues with missing graphic cards, most likely you're not going to be able to see anything once Windows boot. So that's an issue. Slow startup, you could have also, that could be a problem with the graphic cards. If you just updated it, maybe you can do a rollback. Another thing that you can do is on that mass config file, as we were, mass config. You can disable certain things. Minimal no GUI boot. You can base it on video. There's some more advanced settings here that you can play with, but you can essentially you can disable some of these here, so your system boots faster, right? That's another thing you can do. You can disable faster startup on the power profile. So if you go into settings, power settings, let's go power settings, power settings. I think that will be inside the advanced stuff. Oops. Advanced. Yeah, somewhere here should be, let me just making sure. This is under choose what power buttons do. I don't think I can do this on a VM. Yeah, I don't have this ability here. But there should be a setting here on the shutdown settings that will be turn turn on and turn off fast startup will be here. I don't have the settings here, probably because this is a virtual machine. But that is that option. User profile issues, that's something else that you can be having. You could use the SFC or the DISM utilities to correct corruption problems. We went over the SFE on the command line. You can examine your group policies. Maybe your group policies are making your computer slow. Like if you have redundant policies, that could be the problem. Create a new user, transfer files from a local account to a new one. And then you can check if there is any improvements there. That's another issue that you may be having to fix profile issues. You could have domain accounts that can be having issues if you're not having the profiles being synced to the domain controller. That could be creating problems. So these are the things that you have to keep in mind. Checking your DNS, making sure that you're doing name resolution properly, you're going to the right domain DNS server is also important to avoid profile issues. Oh, another thing on the slow startup problems is you could do a refresh or factory reset on your computer after backing up your data. This should improve. Also, a clean install, doing a clean install of Windows, basically wiping everything. Please do a backup before you do that as well, because sometimes it could be something else. Maybe even a virus could be causing a slow startup. But then again, a virus will also cause slow performance ongoing. To get into the safe mode, I showed you how to do it via the MS config before. Another way is to do a shift restart, and that will take you to the troubleshooting screens of Windows. Let me see if I can do that through here. I'm curious if it works on VirtualBox. Going through here, restart, so press shift, restart. It should take me to a troubleshoot menu. That will give me some advanced settings. This would be like if you are troubleshooting Windows itself, it also be beneficial for that as well. Like boot problems, as we're talking about the Windows, what is it? The recovery environment. Yeah, that's the one. So this is basically the Windows recovery environment, right? So you can use troubleshooting tools here. Some startup repair could be used here. Let the boot rec we're talking about. You can use the command prompt. You can use the system image recovery. You can uninstall some updates. So these are some of the settings that you may be able to use from it. And mouse does work here. And since you don't have any problems, you can just continue and start Windows. Other problems that you may have is operation errors. A common one is the blue screen of death, or the BSOD. Typically, it reboots the computer after a problem happens, and it gives you a blue screen with some. Now it gives you a QR code that you can find out what the issue was. Very important that you recognize the very first one, because it could be indicative of physical memory problems that you might be having. So it's very important to try to grab the first one. If it is memory after the first one, there might be a possibility that you may have mixed messages from the system as you get more blue screens. But so definitely it would be something to do with testing your memory, be something you can do. You can also get that from improper shutdowns. You could get a blue screen as well. And also on the blue screens, you can use the Microsoft knowledge base to find out what those blue screens were. Let me log back in here. Uh, so besides, another issue they can have for operation problems, operation perspective is improper shutdown. If you just up and turn off your machine, as I said, you can get a blue screen. However, sometimes Windows can just reboot on its own. They're like, you know what? Like for example, I remember I was having the activation problem when I first started doing this lab, and I had to rearm the activation, the trial license. So that could be a problem as well. It could also be something else that's causing a reboot. And a typical approach is if you're having a computer that inconsistently is shutting down on its own, I don't know, those are AD tools. You can go into, not this guy, you can go into a tool called Event Viewer, which we went over briefly on it. And this will give you, this will actually be under administrative events. And it takes a little bit to load, but you're gonna start seeing some events showing populate over here. But you should be able to see the reason why your computer was shut down. It's typically gonna be an error here, and it's gonna tell you what happened. Why was it shut down? So I might have some shutdowns that I did manually. Let me see. Kernel power, there you go. Critical, that's what it shows up. So your system has rebooted without clearly shut down first, right? So what are you looking for here? You're looking for things that happened before, right? Typically. Although this was just me powering it off, if it wasn't, then maybe the reason might be found in these warnings, one of these items here. So this is why Event Viewer is your best friend when it comes to this. Another way to troubleshoot if you're having issues with your computer rebooting on its own is, or shutting down on its own, will be trying to go into safe mode and see if your system is stable enough in that mode. And maybe look at your boot options, see what's going on, go into the MS config and see what applications are starting. Maybe you can remove some of those. They'll give you some time to to boot Windows properly and see what happens. So restart the Windows normally and see what happens after that. Also use the system file checker to verify integrity of the system, or the SFC tool, right, that we did on the command line, or even the check disk to make sure that you don't have any bad sectors, because that could be also a cause of it. You may find some clues on the event viewer, may not. It depends. That's what those spontaneous shutdowns could. That's a very useful tool to find the reason of those spontaneous shutdowns. Another reason why you could have spontaneous shutdowns is malware. So definitely have some antivirus there and scan for malware. And maybe you cannot find the reason. Maybe you suspect it's malware. Maybe you need to go a little deeper and use a tool like Wireshark, like I have installed here, and actually look at your network traffic. You may see some stuff being sent to somewhere that you don't recognize, that you shouldn't be going. Maybe your computer is not doing anything. You see how it is not doing anything right now, but I'm sending some packets to some other country, and upon checking the traffic on protocol analyzers such as Wireshark, I might be able to see that maybe I have some malware on this computer, in fact, right? So that's another thing that you can do there. Device issues. For device issues, we'll go to Device Manager. As I show you guys, you can do rollbacks on your driver updates. You can also check if you have any disabled devices in there and re-enable that. See if there is any yellow exclamation points or question marks in there, or red signs. So let me just pull it here. So device manager warnings. Let's pull it up here. They have different ones. So it could look like this here, right? That's an issue. It could be something that you're missing drivers for. You have these question marks, these big question marks. That could be an issue. Let me see if he has another one here. That is another one that is red. That is not showing here. Yeah. Oh, unknown device. That's also missing driver problem. Issues here. See if I can see the red one. No. No, it doesn't show here anyway. Anyways, but you guys get the point. That's basically how you could determine if you're having issues with the drive or not. It could be drive related, could be also that the physical drive is damaged. Could also be one of those. Missing DLL to work on those issues. You can copy and paste a DLL from another device that you know is working properly. It doesn't have any issues with the DLL, so you can copy and paste it. Put in a shared drive or put in a USB flash drive and move it over. You could associate, maybe there are some services that you're running, like if you go into services, you may be able to see one of these services may have that specific DL or some in some other location here, and then you can manually associate those. So you don't have any issues. You can use the SRV32 to register the DLL, which sometimes requires before the file can run in the system. So this guy here, Resh SRV 32. Oops. That's not what I was looking for. SRV. He's taking me to, let's go, register server. All right, doesn't let me find it. Anyways, well, that's the tool. Let me see how you access that on Windows 10. Reg serv 32 exe. Windows 10. Windows 10. I think they have a different way to go about it. Oh, in the command prompt. Okay. So CMD. Oh, let's do that outrun. So if you go Windows name plus R, should work here. No, it doesn't. I guess it's command prompt. SRV 32. .exe? Nope. I don't know what they're talking about then. Let me see. Ah, yes. So that is an issue with Windows 10 and